Rents going down, grocery prices are surprisingly lower, and some towns are literally paying people to move in. Sounds amazing, right? Like some hidden gem deal waiting to be snatched up. But what if it's not all sunshine and savings? What if these affordable states are actually sounding the alarm? Towns running out of people, tax bases shrinking, local governments barely hanging on, and aging communities with no one stepping in to fill the gap. Ever wondered why you can buy 2 houses here for the price of one anywhere else? In 2025, these 10 states might seem like a dream for your wallet, but the real cost? It might be hiding in plain sight. Number 10, Kansas. Alright, here's the deal with Kansas. Teachers are walking away from their jobs, small towns are literally giving away land, and yet, people still aren't biting. Entire hospital wings now sit empty. On the surface, Kansas seems like a budget-friendly dream, with a cost of living index around 87, way below the national average. But in 2025, those low prices? They're starting to feel more like warning signs than bargains. Take a closer look. Over 50 rural school districts have switched to 4-day school weeks, not because it's trendy, but because they can't afford to keep the lights on for 5. Kansas ranks 46th in the nation for per-student education funding. Since 2020, teacher turnover has surged by 28%. And it's not just education taking a hit, healthcare is crumbling too. Since 2022, more than a dozen rural hospitals have either shut their doors or cut critical services, forcing families to drive hours just to give birth or see a specialist. That's not a cost of living win, that's a serious red flag. And sure, the housing market looks tempting. The median home price hovers around $205,000, and property taxes are pretty tame. But don't let that fool you. In over 60 Kansas counties, the population is shrinking. Homes are sitting empty. Some towns are so desperate they're handing out free land and cash just to get people to move in. If people still aren't coming, maybe it's not about the money. Maybe it's about what they're trying to avoid. Even energy, which should be a strength, Kansas is a wind energy powerhouse, isn't benefiting locals. Most of that energy gets sold out of state, while Kansans watch their utility bills climb and the profits head straight to corporate HQs elsewhere. So here's the real question: how long can a state keep offering so little and expect people to stay? We're unpacking the hidden cracks in some of America's cheapest places, because a low cost of living shouldn't mean a low quality of life. Number 9, Arkansas. At first glance, Arkansas seems like a steal: low rent, cheap groceries, and median home prices around $180,000. With a cost of living index at 88.7, it's often pitched as a budget-friendly dream. But once you scratch the surface, the picture starts to shift, and not in a good way. Imagine living in a place where there's no public transportation, schools can't afford textbooks, and fast internet? Still a luxury in some towns. It's 2025, but over 40% of Arkansas counties are labeled medically underserved. That means not enough doctors, barely any clinics, and in some areas, no pharmacies at all. In the Arkansas Delta, some families have to drive 90 minutes or more just to get basic health care. That's not just inconvenient, it's dangerous. Now let's talk schools. Over 200 public schools have reported major shortages, whether it's certified teachers, essential materials, or both. In certain districts, teacher turnover has hit 35%, and standardized test scores? They've dropped into the bottom 10 nationally. And no, the shift to 4-day school weeks here isn't about flexibility, it's about survival. Even internet access, which should be a given by now, is holding communities back. 1 in 5 rural households still don't have high-speed internet, even with federal money flowing in. That's not just a tech issue, it's a roadblock for remote workers, students trying to learn, and patients relying on telehealth. Some mayors have flat out said they can't attract new residents because reliable Wi-Fi just doesn't exist. Sure, your grocery bill might be lower. Utilities too. But what does that matter when the infrastructure can't support modern life? When schools can't hold on to teachers, your town doesn't have a hospital, and you're stuck in a digital dead zone? Is that really a low-cost win? Or are we just looking at the long-term effects of neglect? These are the hard truths behind the affordable living headlines. The ones that rarely make the brochure, but they matter. If this kind of breakdown opens your eyes, hit that subscribe button. Because the next state might just flip your whole idea of what cheap really costs. Number 8, West Virginia. West Virginia is offering up entire towns for less than the price of a used pickup truck. Sounds wild, right? But it's not a quirky real estate deal, it's a symptom of something much deeper. Yes, the cost of living is low, about 16% below the national average, but what's happening behind the scenes in 2025 is something most Americans don't see. The truth? The state is quietly falling apart. More than 1 in 4 counties is losing people every single year. And here's a stat that should stop you in your tracks. Only about 54% of West Virginia's working-age population is actually working. That's the lowest workforce participation rate in the entire country. Let that sink in. Nearly half the working-age adults aren't in the workforce at all. And just when you think it can't get more alarming, it does. Hospitals are vanishing. Since 2019, at least 5 rural hospitals have either closed or drastically downsized. That means entire regions now face hospital deserts. Places where you could need emergency care and find the nearest ER is over an hour away. Imagine the risk that puts on everyday lives. So, sure, the houses are cheap. But ask yourself, why? Is it really a hidden gem? Or is it a blinking red warning light? Because here's the hard truth: when the people leave, when the jobs vanish, and when the infrastructure fails, can we still call it a functioning state? These are the stories that don't make the real estate ads. But we're here to pull back the curtain. Because sometimes, the deal of a lifetime comes with a cost you can't afford to ignore. Number 7, Oklahoma. On paper, Oklahoma looks like a great deal. The cost of living is nearly 14% below the national average, but in 2025, that affordability is coming with some serious strings attached. Let's start with the schools. The teacher shortage here has gotten so bad that some districts are hiring people without college degrees, just to keep classrooms running. Oklahoma ranks 48th in the nation for public education funding and rural schools. They're closing down faster than the state can even consolidate them. So if you're thinking of moving here with kids, that's a big question mark. Then there's healthcare. Oklahoma has one of the highest uninsured rates in the U.S., and rural hospitals are going dark, losing funding, closing doors, and leaving entire counties without emergency care. That means basic medical help isn't just inconvenient to access, it's non-existent in some areas. Now throw in weather-related chaos. Over 150 tornadoes touched down last year, and Oklahoma's power grid is cracking under pressure. Grid failures during peak weather seasons are becoming the norm. And here's the part no one talks about: Oklahoma's power grid. It's almost as fragile as Texas. But it gets way less attention. And behind the headlines, there's a water crisis slowly creeping in, quiet, but serious. Between droughts and overuse, some parts of the state are starting to feel the pressure. So here's the question: is cheap really worth it when it comes with life-altering risks? What's the point of low costs if you're stuck without healthcare, scrambling for education, and sweating through blackouts while tornadoes spin outside? These are the real stories behind the bargain states. And trust me, we're just getting started. Hit that subscribe button, because the next state, it might shock you even more. Number 6, Michigan. Michigan might not be the first place that comes to mind when you think of cheap living, but once you dive into the data, yeah, it belongs on this list. And the numbers? They speak volumes. In 2025, Michigan's cost of living is about 10.5% lower than the national average, with housing doing most of the heavy lifting. Get this, the median home price is just $189,000, compared to the national average of $349,000. And renters? You're looking at around $980 for a two-bedroom apartment, a price tag that's basically unheard of in most U.S. metro areas. So, what's going on? Why is it so affordable? It comes down to a complicated mix of economic shifts and population loss. Cities like Detroit, Flint, and Saginaw have plenty of homes, but fewer people to buy them. Between 2022 and 2024, Michigan lost over 40,000 residents. That means supply outweighs demand in a lot of areas, especially outside popular hubs like Ann Arbor or Traverse City. The upside? Renters and first-time buyers finally have the upper hand. But here's what might really surprise you, utilities and healthcare costs are also dropping. Michigan's part of a quiet energy revolution in the Midwest. Wind and solar now make up over 21% of the state's power, and electricity rates have dropped by 8.4% in just the past 18 months, bucking national trends. And with Governor Whitmer's 2025 expansion of Medicaid Advantage, out-of-pocket costs for prescriptions and specialist visits have gone down, too. Ask yourself, how many other states are lowering both your energy bill and your medical costs at the same time? Still, here's the big question, is it worth living in a place that's cheap, because people are leaving? Michigan's affordability is a strange cocktail of economic wounds from the past and some genuinely smart policy moves. If you can handle the brutal winters and the less-than-stellar public transit, this is one of the few states where your money really stretches. You could own a home, cut your bills in half compared to the coasts, and still have enough left to actually save. But here's the thing, this window might not stay open for long. If remote work keeps trending, Michigan could be the next hidden gem that gets discovered all over again. So, will you be ahead of the curve? Number 5, Mississippi. Mississippi might wear the crown as the cheapest state to live in, with a cost of living index around 87.9. But in 2025, that low price tag is hiding some of the most serious infrastructure failures in the country. Let's start with healthcare. Over half of Mississippi's rural hospitals are at risk of shutting down. And it's not a future threat, it's already happening. For the past 3 years, the state has led the nation in medical facilities reducing services or closing entirely. So what happens when your nearest ER is 2 counties away? That's not just inconvenient, it's life-threatening. Then there's Jackson, the capital city, still recovering from a water crisis that made national headlines. At one point, more than 150,000 people were under boil water notices. And the truth is, it's not over. Decades-old pipes, crumbling sewage systems, some towns are still fighting to provide safe drinking water in 2025. Families are leaving because they simply can't trust the tap. And what about the internet, one of the most essential tools in modern life? Mississippi ranks 47th in broadband access. In many towns, service is spotty at best, and in some areas, it doesn't exist at all. If you're trying to work from home, take classes online, or access telehealth, it's a non-starter. Yes, housing is cheap, the median home price is under $170,000. Groceries cost about 10% less than the national average. But when education ranks dead last nationally, and schools are struggling to keep staff, what kind of long-term future does that really offer? And here's a piece people rarely talk about: brain drain. Mississippi loses more college-educated residents each year than nearly any other state. Young people aren't sticking around because the message is loud and clear: low wages, failing infrastructure, and a lack of opportunity don't add up to a promising future. So, ask yourself, is affordability still worth it when the very systems that hold a community together, healthcare, education, clean water, internet, are collapsing? We're peeling back the layers on what cheap living really looks like in America. And if this is hitting you differently than the highlight reels you usually see, hit that subscribe button, because the next state, it gets even more shocking. Number 4, Missouri. Missouri might look like a bargain on paper, with a cost of living index at 88.7 and average home prices around $210,000, it checks all the boxes for affordable. But in 2025, the truth behind that affordability is a lot harder to stomach. Let's start with the big, uncomfortable one: crime. St. Louis has the highest violent crime rate in the country. Kansas City. Property crime has jumped over 18% in just the last year. For many residents, especially in urban areas, it's not just about lower rent, it's about rising insecurity. And out in rural Missouri? It's a different crisis, but just as dangerous. The rural healthcare system is in freefall. Over 1/3 of Missouri counties no longer have full-service hospitals. That means if you get sick, injured, or worse, you could be driving hours just to reach an ER. It's not dramatic to say this is a life-or-death situation for thousands of people. Then there's the education system, and it's not doing much better. Missouri ranks 41st in the country for K-12 school funding, and the teacher shortage has gotten so extreme that some schools are using substitute teachers for entire academic years. Think about that, kids going through a whole school year without a permanent teacher. As of mid-2025, there are still over 2,000 unfilled teaching positions across the state. What does that mean for your child's future? Even basic infrastructure is falling behind. In parts of the Ozarks, high school students still walk miles just to find a cell signal. That's not just inconvenient, it's a deal breaker in today's connected world. Sure, groceries are cheaper. Utilities are below average. But what happens when the power goes out during a snowstorm, and emergency crews are hours away? What happens when you can't find a doctor, your kid's school has no consistent staff, and the streets outside your home feel more dangerous by the day? And then there's this. Why are so many counties offering cash just to get people to move in? What's going on beneath the surface that the stats don't show? We're not here to sugarcoat anything. This is the real breakdown of what cheap living can actually cost, and in Missouri, those cracks are starting to show in ways no spreadsheet can explain. Number 3, Alabama. Alabama loves to market itself as one of the most affordable states in the country, with a cost of living index around 88 and median home prices under $200,000. On the surface, it sounds like a steal. But in 2025, behind those savings, there's a much darker story unfolding. Let's start with something we all depend on: clean water. More than 70 rural water systems in Alabama have been flagged as high risk by regulators, citing contamination, crumbling infrastructure, and severe underfunding. In Bibb and Wilcox counties, families rely on bottled water because what's coming out of their taps isn't safe to drink. This isn't rare, it's reality. Public safety isn't far behind. Budget cuts have forced over 50 volunteer fire departments to shut down or slash their hours in just the past 2 years. In some rural areas, response times have tripled, if help comes at all. Imagine your home catching fire, and no one showing up in time. Then there's Alabama's prison system, which is bursting at 187% capacity. The Department of Justice has already declared the conditions unconstitutional, citing inhumane treatment and overcrowding. It's not just a policy problem, it's a moral one. And education? It's nearing a breaking point. Alabama ranks in the bottom 5 states nationwide, and more than 3,000 teaching positions remain unfilled in 2025. Some schools are surviving on long-term substitutes with no credentials, just to keep classrooms open. That's not creative, it's desperate. Healthcare in the state is unraveling, too. Alabama rejected Medicaid expansion, leaving nearly 300,000 low-income residents stuck in a coverage gap with nowhere to turn. Rural hospitals are shutting down, maternal mortality is rising, and whole regions are turning into medical deserts where basic care is simply out of reach. So yes, groceries are cheaper. Utilities cost less. But here's the bigger question: how cheap is too cheap? When clean water is a luxury, when your school can't find real teachers, when the nearest hospital might be hours away, and when the fire department doesn't answer the call, is that really a bargain? We're not just talking about prices, we're exposing the true cost of living. And in Alabama, that cost is starting to look dangerously high. Number 2, Iowa. Iowa might not top your list of dream destinations, but in 2025, it's quietly becoming one of the most financially stable states to live in. Sounds unbelievable, right? Let's break it down. Rent for a 2-bedroom? Just around $950, way below the national average of over $1,300. Even in Des Moines, the state's capital and most expensive city, you can still grab a downtown loft for under $1,200. Try finding that in any other capital city. So what's the secret? Iowa's housing market isn't just steady, it's smart. Unlike states that overbuilt during the real estate boom, Iowa built based on actual demand. That helped avoid price spikes and kept things grounded. Now let's talk everyday costs. Groceries, transportation, healthcare, and utilities. All around 15 to 20% cheaper than the national average. A big reason? Wind energy. Over 60% of Iowa's power comes from wind, slashing monthly electricity bills to about $106. That's $40 less than most Americans pay. And taxes? Property taxes hover near the national average at 1.43%. But since home prices are way lower, residents end up paying thousands less overall. Plus, since 2023, retirement income isn't taxed at all. No wonder retirees are flocking in. There was a 12% spike in 2024 alone. So here's the real question: if Iowa is so affordable, why isn't everyone moving there? Well, because perception still matters more than data. But those paying attention, retirees, remote workers, even tech founders, are already making the move. Especially with Iowa rolling out rural broadband and offering juicy tax credits for startups. 2025 might just be the year Iowa surprises everyone. Number 1, Indiana. Now before you scroll past thinking it's all cornfields and ghost towns, hold up. Indiana is not fading into the background. In fact, it's quietly becoming one of the most financially secure places to live in 2025, and barely anyone's talking about it. Let's kick things off with housing. While home prices are exploding past $500,000 in other parts of the country, Indiana's median home price? Just around $225,000. That's not a typo, it's less than half the national average. So nope, you don't need 6 roommates or a side hustle just to pay rent here. And it's not just real estate that's affordable. Across the board, groceries, utilities, healthcare, Indiana ranks among the top 5 states with the lowest overall cost of living. It's one of the few places where your paycheck actually stretches, not shrinks. Oh, and wait until you hear this. Indiana's property taxes are some of the lowest in the country, averaging just 0.73%. That's a fraction of what folks are paying in places like New Jersey, where rates soar above 2%. That could mean saving thousands every single year. So, why isn't everyone packing their bags and heading to Indiana? Honestly, because it doesn't try to show off. It's not chasing headlines with palm trees or flashy startups. What Indiana offers instead is good old-fashioned stability. Sure, manufacturing is still a big player here. But what you might not know? Tech hubs are quietly popping up in places like Indianapolis and Bloomington. Logistics and life sciences are drawing in billions in new investments. It's like Indiana's been playing the long game, and winning. And get this, the state is sitting on one of the largest budget surpluses in the Midwest. That's thanks to smart fiscal policies and a balanced budget law. Translation? Your tax dollars aren't vanishing into some black hole of government overspending. So if all of this has you rethinking what your dream move looks like, just wait. We're only scratching the surface of America's best-kept secrets. Hit that subscribe button, like the video, and share it with someone planning their next big move. Trust me, the next place on our list might just flip your whole plan upside down.